again, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, one and all, to a brand new edition of The Quinn Spinn. I'm your host, The Quinn, at least it's how I'm known here on the program. And I'm back here on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube, and more for another rousing and riveting installment of the official podcast of Underground Music Collective, who I'm representing with this Keep the Music Playing t-shirt, which you can find at umcnashville.com. Anyway, you just heard Revel 9's All It Become at the top of the show. That's been our opening theme song here at the Quinn Spinn since the great year of 2014, and it will be until the very end of days. And I'm joined for the third time, moving into a tie with a lot of other people for second place all time, by Ender Bowen, who is a musician, an author, and just overall creative, and, we'll note on this episode, the first ever graduate of the UMC Academy. Quinn Spinn, round of applause. Quinn Spinn, round of applause. If you would like to graduate one day, just like Ender, and watch all your dreams come true, go to umcnashville.com/academy. Anyway, enough with the sales pitch for now. How's it going?
It's going really, really well.
Good.
It's really, really busy.
Yes. Yes, it is. We were just talking about that offline, just trying to keep it all in balance, and I'm sure we'll get into some of that as well. But before we do, I want you to remind the nice people, who are you? What are your passions? And why on earth would you want to come on the Quinn Spinn for the third time? Those three standard questions.
I'm going to start with the third one and say that I'm on it for the third time because I'm trying to get on here for the most times. I'm Ender Bowen. I'm a singer, songwriter, author, husband, father, complete dork, and aspiring compassionist. And I am basically trying to make the world a more compassionate place. And I'm doing that through music, through podcasts, through websites, through blogs, through books. Soon to have some books. I'm actually working on those right now. And just trying to create a community of little lights and bring more compassion into the world, pretty much.
And so that's what we've spent a lot of time working on over the past year plus.
At this point, yeah.
You know, and now, we've gotten to the point where, you can spread your wings and fly, soar like the eagle. And and so, it's interesting because when we started working together, like you kind of see this progression through the episodes we've done. The first episode was like pre-Academy. The second episode was when we had started working together. That was last fall, I believe, right?
It was
fall, early winter, somewhere in that neighborhood.
I want to say it was actually even before. Was it before I did the?
It was after the 10th birthday show.
It was after
we talked about what the experience was.
My gosh, yeah, I guess it was. Yeah, okay.
And now here you are, a graduate of the UMC Academy, and you've learned so much and you've grown so much, and I'm proud to have witnessed that growth and have maybe played a small part in it. So
I'm really excited to have been a part of it and to have experienced that growth and to have done that. It was a really good experience. It continues to be a really good experience. That's part of why, to answer your question about why I'm on the show, it's part of why I'm on the show, because I want to kind of bring that to a larger audience and help to express exactly what that kind of experience was and what it's done for me, and kind of in a similar way that I'm trying to use my platform to pay a lot of different things forward. I kind of pay that forward as well. So yeah.
And certainly, when we first started working together, you had like God Jots, you had what's now called Joy Commission, was Operation Joy before.
Yep.
And of course you had your music platform, and we started working together primarily in the music sense. You know, and have expanded out to really developing this entire ecosystem around Ender Bowen and who Ender Bowen is and the values that you put forth and what you want to create in the world.
Yep.
And so in that process, you've had a chance to really develop the different components of that ecosystem, tie them together, and build community, start to really build and foster a strong community around the values of compassion, around the value of community itself, and how are we making the world a better place? How are we approaching conversations more consciously, more respectfully? How are we building this world full of little lights who are going out and spreading light as opposed to so much of the darkness that's spread out in society? So as you've gone through this journey through the Academy and just, in your own discovery of, what this platform can be that you've developed, what are some of the major takeaways for you so far?
Like in terms of what like we've gone through with the process and everything. Well, certainly one of the main takeaways is you talked about how we kind of started on the music. And I mean, I did already have God Jots and Joy Commission kind of lined up as something. And we did already talk about how I think when we started working together, I was already in the process of trying to bring them all under one brand, which is me,
right?
Which is important because as I'll get to, telling your story, you kind of want all those pieces to come together like that. But yeah, we started out more or less focusing on the music aspect, and that's how we kind of ended up at me, playing at that gig last fall. Like we were talking about, but we very quickly focused on and started really working on this concept of these adjacent sort of content and platforms to help express more what the music is about, because people aren't really going to be looking for the music. There isn't a purposeful and intentional way that people are going to be looking for your music. So I think we both, without even really saying it to each other, we kind of already both knew we really had to be focusing, get the music part working, but focus on what this other adjacent stuff is. And I think, I always had that in the back of my mind, but as you and I started working together, it became much more clear that is the target route and where to go. And I mean, even just last week, you talk about me, spreading my wings and flying. I've already been taking those next steps on my own to figure out, looking at data that I'm getting from things that I'm doing and saying, okay, how can I take that and maximize what we're doing? Much like we were talking about how to focus on, my email list offer. And gearing that towards what people are really looking for. And I think when you really start thinking about what it is people are really looking for, then you can start to gear your story in a way that brings them closer to it. And we're still in the very embryonic stages of a lot of that stuff, but we've got clear targets and everything else. And those are things that a year ago, before we started working together, maybe I would have come to those conclusions eventually, but I think by focusing on our vision and our mission and our values, really getting those down on paper, we found over time how to position things, how to focus things, and that's kind of been a fuel that's allowed me to go out on my own and make some further conclusions. And it helps that I've had other experience in these avenues on my own too. Like when we're talking about Google PPC and search and SEO and all that. But I think I wouldn't have had the sort of impetus to go out and make these further discoveries with it, if not for us sitting down and really targeting our things and making real clear-cut goals and setting dates and milestones and everything else. These are all things that everyone knows that they should do, but it's very different from actually going ahead and doing it. And not only that, but having an accountability partner who's making sure you're getting it done. And as long as you're taking yourself seriously, you're going to see results. You're going to see that grow, and you're going to see yourself on a path to success, I would say. And I think I've said this to you several times, I feel for the first time in my life, I've been trying to do this stuff for well over 2 decades, one way or another. It wasn't until maybe, 6 months ago, I said to you that I feel for the first time like I've finally turned a corner in figuring out how to do this. I don't have all the answers yet, but that light bulb and that eureka moment and that sort of aha that came from us working together was incredible. I can't even tell you the different sort of things I've done and different platforms I've involved myself in before, where it was so impersonal, so just formulaic, without any sort of real guidance or accountability. And those didn't get me anywhere. And it didn't take even a couple months for me to see where this was going to go and how this was going to help. So yeah, it's I probably just went way off on a tangent there, but
no, it's fine. Now I'm going to use that as a testimonial. Thank you.
You should.
That was
get it transcribed and get it down. Good. Now I don't have to write it.
Yeah. No, I've been meaning to reach out for another round of testimonials. There we go.
Yeah.
Just across the board.
Let that be your guide.
Which, by the way, if you're in the academy, I'm going to be asking. So just you might as well get it ready now. And video is even better than writing. But yeah, back to you. One of the first breakthroughs I remember us having was really the connecting the dots and realizing like, hey, instead of having these function as separate entities, they can all be part of the same ecosystem because they're all based in your values. They all share the same values. And whether it's music, whether it's the blog, whether it's the book, whether it's the podcast now, you've started podcasting, through Godjots. Like each one of those mediums has its own sub audience, right? And has a different way of reaching people. People might not come to you from the music, but they might read a blog post that you've written. And might be curious to follow the trail all the way into your music, all the way into these other components of your ecosystem. Yeah. And the thing that ties them together is you. The thing that ties them together is the values and the community that you're trying to build. The thing that you're trying to put more of into the world is really that tie that binds. And so that was one of the first breakthroughs that I remember us having. And then, it starts with values, it starts from that foundation of like, okay, what are you seeing in the world? What's the change you want to be, to use that cliche, right?
Right.
And then how do you go forth and do that and present that in these different digestible ways that meets your audience where they are, wherever they are? Because your audience is out there, right?
Yep.
And they, again, might be consuming different kinds of content than what you're currently putting out. So how can you reach them and bring them in to this overall ecosystem and keep them there? I think that's been really something that it's just been a lot of fun watching you connect those dots.
Yeah, and it's been fun. It's been fun kind of connecting those dots. I mean, it helps that I've had a lot of that content ready to go for a long time. And before we were working together, there was that period where I tried to separate all those things. Like here's my music, here's Godjots, here's Joy Commission or Operation Joy. And I tried to treat them as separate brands, basically. It's just that I own. But at a certain point, I realized that these things need to all be under one brand. That brand is me. And that doesn't mean I'm like, the center of attention part of it. It's just maybe that I'm the guy spearheading all these things and trying to build one community out of it. And once I had that sort of relative epiphany, it was a lot easier to say, okay, now rather than sitting here and saying I've got my music over here and these things over there, I can slap my name on these things a little bit more purposefully and intentionally. And I can also connect all those platforms together. So, if someone's coming to Joy Commission, which is, I would argue, is still spiritual, but it's not as highly spiritual as Godjots naturally. I might get some people who aren't necessarily religious or have a basis in like a sort of faith in God kind of thing, but they're going to get a similar message and they might get curious about the music or Godjots. Likewise, people might come to Godjots and be curious about the joy aspect or be curious about the music, because I mention those things all the time, either in sidebars on my thing or I cross link everything. So if I mention that I do music in one blog on Godjots, I'm linking that over to this. So I'm always trying to bring attention to other pieces of that ecosystem. And kind of to what you were saying, having those different pieces of that ecosystem, they talk about a lot of the same things, but in different ways. And they kind of act as different sort of gates or launching points or whatever into that ecosystem. And if people just stay in the Godjots area or the Joy Commission area or whatever, that's totally fine, because they're still getting out of it what I want them to get out of it. They don't necessarily have to get everything else.
Right.
And I mean, that'll probably dovetail into us discussing why these adjacent content platform things are important, with the music. But getting that all together was work, and I'm actually still trying to get Joy Commission up and running because I'm going through that rebrand process whilst at the same time about to publish some Godjots books. Right. So we can probably get into that. But it's been great because now it's like I have these real goals and these real things that I figured out I need to do. And I really, really started to understand how these adjacent pieces of content are what are actually going to bring people to my ecosystem, not the music so much.
And that's such an important lesson, I think, for any artists watching or listening to this right now, because the fact that this is just the world we live in, right?
Right.
Like, if you're just living and dying by your streaming numbers and, you know, just trying to get people to listen to your music, listen to my album, pre-save, pre-save, pre-save. If you're just promoting your music, and that's just an endless parade of promoting your music, it's not going to meet your audience where they are. What that's going to do is it's just going to make you another ad that they're scrolling past, essentially.
It's another billboard that they're driving past on the highway, and what do they care? Like, you're not, they don't know you from Adam. Like, it's, to use an old phrase. But yeah, like your music, I hate to say it because it's a shame. I'm first and foremost a musician, a songwriter and an artist, like, in that way. But nobody is looking for your music. Nobody is looking for you. And there isn't a really, you can do all your Facebook ads and you might get some people. You can do all these, you know, CD Baby, which, you know, I'm a part of. They have these partnerships with like show.co and some other places that will do ads that get you on rollingstone.com. Nobody cares.
Right. And that's very important.
It's not saying anything. I don't mean that. I don't say that to be mean or anything like that. Just you really have to think about that. I mean, I've done a pre-save once in my entire career.
Yeah.
Didn't go very well. And we could argue that might be how I positioned it and everything else. But the point is, who cares about your pre-save if your audience isn't there? Now, if I had a large audience, they'd care about the pre-save because they'd already be there. But cold, it's almost like cold calls. Cold calling people to a pre-save, they do not care. They do not know you.
And to piggyback off that, the two, you know, harsh yet simple truths that begin Perfect Your Pitch, which I'm presenting in person on Friday, August 2nd, 1:30 p.m. at Steel Stacks in Bethlehem, Pennsylvania, as part of the Music Fest Industry and Education Conference. The two harsh yet simple truths that I've been really basing this whole coaching thing off of for years is being a good musician is not enough, and you have to give people a reason to care. Like, how many people are there out there with musical talent in the world? Probably millions who, like, if they really applied themselves, could probably make a run at this thing, right? At least get some paying gigs, right?
Yeah, and on top of that, that's on top of it already being a cluttered market for that.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. So how do you position yourself to be different, or at least appear different from the rest of them? And I'll tell you right now, and I say it all the time, being first name, middle name, singer, songwriter from My Town, USA is not going to do it for you. You know how many people in this town alone are doing that? It doesn't work. They just end up playing the endless circuit of writers' rounds. What you have to do is set yourself apart. And how you set yourself apart is, what parts of you are you pouring into this? What is your message? What is your mission? What are you trying to create in the world? And how do you use your platform to do that? And who does that connect with? And how are you reaching those people? How are you giving those people a reason to be like, this is the person I'm riding with, as opposed to everybody else who's doing something similar? Because although we all think we're unique, like, chances are there are tons of people doing similar things to every single one of us. It's how you position yourself and set yourself apart and present it in a different enough way that's really going to make the difference.
And I think the first step to that is realizing that it's not about you. It's about the people you're serving.
Boom.
Because when it comes right down to it, and think about this as a musician, one of the reasons you're a musician is because some artist somewhere, you heard them and it changed your life in enough of a way, or maybe several did, changed your life in enough of a way that it inspired you to go on this path, and that's great. Why did it do that? And that's a good place to start for a lot of people too. But you have to remember that at the end of the day, that artist, that musician touched you. Why did they touch you? And how can you? Why would someone else feel touched by you? And we're in a different place now where, you know, back in, let's say, even the 90s, right, before Napster and the digital paradigm shift, it was different because you would see articles about these artists in Rolling Stone all the time, right? And I know that's still going on, but it's a little bit different now. You'd see, you'd pick up a Pumpkin CD or Creed or any of them, and you'd have the jacket, and you could read through the lyrics, and you'd get a sense of who they were based on the photos and everything else, and interviews they would do on MTV, right? But here's the thing. Unless you get that CD into a fan's hands, and they're going to have to be a fan in the first place, that doesn't even come into play yet. You're not going to be in Rolling Stone. You're not going to be on MTV, and even if you were, nobody's watching it. And probably not as many people reading Rolling Stone because it's just gotten way too political and not entertainment. And you have to find new ways to tell your story, because you're not going to tell your story on Spotify. You are very limited, believe it or not. It's so cluttered a space that you're very limited in the space you can actually fit yourself into, so that it really does just turn into, this is just music and nobody cares. And most people are going to digest it digitally. They're not going to have a CD booklet. They may go to the website, but frankly, I don't think they're going to do that these days, because the whole music, the way music is these days, is such a passive experience. It's not an intentional experience. Like before the digital revolution, we would have CDs, we would have the booklets, we would have maybe vinyl, we would have the cassettes, and back to Rolling Stone and this other stuff where you actually, it wasn't stuff just thrown in front of you. You had to go get it. And unless people know you in the first place, they're not going to go get it. Everything is going to be passive. So you need to find another way. You need to find another way to make it intentional.
Yes.
And I think that brings us down to the whole Google search adjacent content aspect.
Yeah. And like, you have to give them a reason to want to engage with you in the first place. You've got to give them a reason to go out of their way. And let's look at, streaming, for example. It's a very passive ecosystem. Yes. What Spotify is, what it amounts to, and I'm picking Spotify because everybody rags on Spotify the most.
That's a good example, though.
It's a marketing tool. It's just a marketing tool. I saw somebody back in Pennsylvania complaining, and I'm just going to call it what it is, complaining that, oh, well, the royalty payout's even less. It's a losing proposition to have my money on my music on Spotify. Well, first of all, that's your victim mentality coming into play. Because you aren't doing enough to market your music to make it a winning proposition, number one. Number two, all it is a marketing tool within your ecosystem. But if that requires us to view our music as a business endeavor in the first place, right?
Yeah.
And the fact of the matter is, like, there's still this mentality, this pervasive mentality out there where it's like, oh, well, it should just be about the music. It should just be about the art. Yeah, in an ideal world, it would be, but it's not. And that's just the reality. And I hate to break it to you out there, if that's your mentality, like, you've got to change if you're going to grow. Yeah. Like, you've got to change that mindset, and you've got to give people a reason to go out of their way to engage with you over everyone doing something similar, because there are people doing something similar to you, and they've figured this out, and that's why they are winning. When I walked in here today, because there's always music playing in here, the Killers were on, and I was thinking about the Killers as I was setting up here, and how they set themselves apart from their contemporaries, right? Like, you think about it, the bands of that time, your Modest Mouses, your Franz Ferdinands, like, successful in their own right. But like, what is it about the Killers that in 2024 still has them packing arenas that maybe Modest Mouse and Franz Ferdinand? It's the way that they set themselves apart in that ecosystem. It's the way they've continued to reinvent their sound. Because if you listen to Hot Fuss or Sam's Town,
way different
now, they are a different band. Like, they are a different band. They've evolved. They've evolved their sound. They've evolved their look. They've evolved everything it is about themselves. And even the things that Brandon's singing about now are completely different from the place he was writing from in 2003, 2004, right? And that's the thing. You have to grow with your audience. You have to give them reasons to engage with you. And you have to present yourself as something that's more than just what you sound like. It's more than just the music itself. Of course, that's an important thing, and that's going to be the thing that hooks people, but it's not the entire story of who you are as an artist, what your brand is, right? And so you need to really find that, and you need to find ways and keep working on ways to connect that to people, and that includes investing into things like paid search, investing into things like making sure you're on all the DSPs, making sure that you're putting the proper time investment, the proper financial investment into your career, if that's what you view it as, so it has a chance to grow.
And just to make a point on what you were saying about your music being a business, that's nothing new. It's been a business since music was sold.
Right.
So if you're sitting there saying, I just want to do my art, I just want to blah, 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 well, good luck with that. Like, that's never been how it's been, ever.
And if you do want to do that and you generally, that's all you want, cool.
Then it's a hobby.
Then it's a hobby.
And that's fine.
And that's fine. There's nothing wrong with that. But we're talking about people who want to make a living off of their music.
Right. Yeah. And I'm pretty sure if you're watching this, you are one of those people, most likely. So you were talking about Google search, and it's important to know that when I said earlier that nobody's looking for your music, I mean that even with Google search. Like, nobody's looking for your music. You're very unlikely to even say, to create ads that have keywords that are like music that sounds like so-and-so. Maybe every now and then you're going to get a hit on that. But here's the thing. You think your music sounds like so-and-so. You could do a survey on your music, and maybe it'll come back with some notes on you sounding like somebody. And maybe you could even try that. But honestly, nobody's really searching for music that way.
And if you're marketing yourself that way, why not just go listen to so-and-so?
That's right. Yes.
How many girls with a guitar in the 2000s and 2010s were the next Taylor Swift? Well, then just go listen to Taylor Swift.
Then just go listen to Taylor Swift, because chances are all these other people that think they sound like Taylor Swift, or people have told them sound like Taylor Swift, don't sound enough like Taylor Swift that you want to stop and listen to them. I mean, and here's the truth. Like, I've had people tell me I sound like Depeche Mode, U2, The Cure, that's an interesting one. Muse, I get Muse a lot, strangely. Smashing Pumpkins, and these are all, it's interesting because these are all influences of mine, so it kind of works. But even when you sit there and position this stuff with Google, it doesn't bring you hardly anyone that's interested. And not only that, but it doesn't really get to your story. I actually did ads on Facebook targeting fans of these bands. And I did get a lot of email signups. But here's the thing. Once I got them signed up to my email list and started telling them my story, they weren't interested. And it really made me realize that I got to start with the story, not with what I sound like. And that dovetails back into the adjacent content and platforms aspect, not just in that sense, but also in the sense of making what people are looking for something that's intentional. So I kind of liken it to, if you're doing Facebook ads, if you're doing Rolling Stone ads, those are more or less the coldest cold calls you can possibly do. And you're very unlikely to get people interested, and they're going to fall off the radar anyway once they realize that they don't know what your story is. So the way to really get people to you is, and mind you, we're still working on this and dialing it in, but we've seen results. The way to really get people to you is to focus on the story and creating this sort of adjacent content like I've done with God Jots and Joy Commission, and positioning that in a way that people are searching for. What's one of the things I said? Forgiveness. I did a blog about how forgiveness is not just for you, it's for the other person too. And I put that up, right? And I created a whole bunch of keywords for it on Google, put up an ad. People started searching for those. I saw what searches people were doing. I saw what searches turned into mail list signups. I saw what searches people were doing that I hadn't put in as keywords, but were relative enough that I could really get a sense of what they were doing. And then the really awesome thing is that when I went and searched for those keywords myself, like what is forgiveness, Google comes up and says, here are other things people ask. And I'm like, I'm going to write a whole bunch of blogs about what other people ask, and that's going to position that in front of people. I'm going to write books about that. That's going to probably make me a little bit of money on the side.
Search engine optimization
and all of that. It's like, that's intentional. That is almost like a warm call. That is somebody going, I am looking for this, and you're putting yourself right there in front of them to give them what they're looking for. That is different, way different from being like, here's my music, it sounds like so-and-so, or here's my music, I'm putting an ad on Rolling Stone. They don't know you from Adam. And being fair, they don't know you from Adam when they're searching on Google either. But if you position your stuff in such a way that it answers the question that the person has, or fills the hole that the person needs filled based on what they're specifically asking, you're going to be in so much better a position. You can't do that with your music. You can do that with other content. So I feel as though when you're doing that, and God Jots and Joy Commission, they are part of my story. They are part of my my purpose, my passion, and my mission, my vision, my values. They're not made up. They're part of what fuels my music. And I'm very confident that while we just kind of started on this path to getting that way, as we dial this in, we are going to see that we're going to get some results, and I'm really excited to see what happens when people go from here to there. And, you know, as we said earlier, maybe they never come to my music, but you've still got to find a way to get people to you. And I think that's the way to do it.
So when are you teaching the course on this?
As soon as I can show some results for it, and really dial that in, and create something that's you know, A to B to C to D, and really make that work and make it digestible. Not so much like as off the cuff and all around like I just did now. But yeah,
no,
I would love
look, I'm convinced. I'm just saying.
Yeah.
I'm sitting here, I'm listening, I'm like, you're ready.
Yeah.
You're ready.
Okay.
You're at least ready to teach
tomorrow.
people, yeah. You're at least ready to teach people who are just like, you know, trying to feel it out. You've done that feeling out, you know, and you've done enough of what, you know, doesn't work to know what does and go in that direction.
I can give you a place to start.
Yeah, exactly. Like, and that's the thing is, I think, you know, even in building the academy, like, and here's the thing. Here's what I'm going to break down about the coaching space right now. Everybody still has something to learn. I don't care how many big outlets they've been on. I don't care how reputable they say they are. The fact of the matter is we're all learning as we go, including the most quote unquote reputable coaches out there. Right. But really what it comes down to is, what are you teaching from the things you've experienced to help someone shorten the time to get to that result?
Yep.
Right. And as you continue to learn new lessons and continue to find new revelations, like sharing those, you know, like walking with the people that you're coaching instead of coming at them with edict that may or may not be effective, or may not even be effective for that particular person or their circumstance or their platform, right?
Yeah, and in some ways creating a relationship with that person that you as the coach are learning some things as well. I mean,
yeah. I've learned from you.
Yeah.
I've learned from everybody I've worked with. It's made me better at what I do.
Yeah, that has to be part of that coaching mentor mentee relationship in a sense. You know, if there isn't that sort of thing going on like this, then I really feel like your coach or your mentor doesn't really know you enough, or isn't really invested in you enough. And I can tell you, like, I know you're invested in me because of the conversations we've had, on the work we've done, on I mean, shoot, the thing you did last month, the sort of curated live event was at least in part based on a little bit on some conversations we had a while back. Right. So like you can see how that stuff really can take off, and if everyone's open-minded and learning from each other, it's amazing the things you can do and try. And that's the other thing is coaches and mentors are not necessarily, if and when I'm doing that, I'm not going to have all the answers, but it's important to, as a coach and a mentor, know you well enough to know what you're looking for and guide you in a direction that helps you really understand what your vision and your mission and your goals are, and helps you dial those in, but can help guide you to think. I think we were talking yesterday about how it's almost like a therapist, but not really.
Right. There's a sense of counsel that happens, but it's not like,
well, and getting them to answer their own questions, or answer their own, fill in their own gaps, but you guide them into that, that kind of a thing.
Yes. Yeah. And that level of investment is so important. And, you know, I've been on the other side of this too. You know, the best coaches have coaches, as they say, and I've definitely sought out coaching. And there were definitely people who I did consults with who you could tell right from the jump, it was like, I know everything and you should spend money with me. Like, first of all, the person that tells you that they know everything and that they have all the answers is either naive and they decided they were a coach last week, or they're trying to sell you something.
I was going to say, or they're a flat out liar.
Yeah.
I
had a consult last fall with somebody who literally told me, and I quote, "Well, I don't care if you sign on with me or not." It's like, well, then why the F am I going to give you the thousands of dollars you're asking me for? Why would I ever do that if you're telling me right now you're not even invested in listening to what I have to say?
That means they don't care about you and your platform and everything else.
It's about this.
Yeah.
It's about selling the high ticket offer. And, you know, that's just so painfully obvious when it's about the money and when it's not about service. And it needs to be about service.
I was going to say that. Yeah.
And I think like in this coaching space, there's so especially, and I'm not knocking AI. AI is very useful in a lot of ways, but there's such this like get rich quick. Like I'm going to use AI and I'm going to bring in 100 people into my program and But how are you building personal relationships to know what they need for where they are in their journey? If you're doing that, it needs to be one-on-one. And yeah, it's a slower way to get there. It's probably not as lucrative a way to get there, but it's the right way to get there, because then you are actually coaching and you're not just handing out templates and saying, hey, go do this. Okay, cool. Let me know how it goes. It's like, okay, let's talk through this. You tried this. How did it work for you? How did it not work for you? What did you find? You know, how can we adjust the sails a little bit and go in a truer direction? Like, that is coaching. That is mentorship. And there's a lot of stuff on the internet right now, and I'm getting on my soapbox right now. I'm getting fired up. That is flying in the face of that, but still calling itself coaching and mentorship.
Yeah.
And it's not. It's just not. It's listen to me. I have all the answers. Okay, you're going to pay me a premium now, right? That's what it is.
And, you know, just, I didn't mean to interrupt, but as you were saying that, I had this sort of little light bulb go off. As a musician, we were talking about the whole, your stuff on Spotify, right? Just putting your stuff on Spotify and expecting people to care, or here's your pre-saves or whatever it is. And we talked about serving your community as being what you really need to focus on, not you. In the same way that you're talking about coaching and mentorship, think about your music as if that platform is your coaching or mentorship. And if it is not serving your community, then what is it actually doing? And what you really need to do is figure out how to get that to serve your community. And if you can do that, I'm not saying it's impossible to do that with just your music, but I am saying that it's going to take you a long time if it's just never going to happen. You need to have some other way to get people in there, some sort of back door, and so that people can find you. They're not going to find you with your music. And if what you're really focusing on is your music, then you're not really serving your community. So if you think about you, I guess, and now that I'm saying it like that, I kind of think of myself and my brand. I mean, in a sense, I'm acting as a coach or a mentor, because I'm trying to create this community that helps people learn how to be more compassionate and learn how to see each individual as they come, not throw them into these groups and make prejudgments and get, you know, all this tribal stuff. And I've seen a large amount of people who are really looking for that. And I've also interacted with people who have taught me a few things. So just like we talked about the coaching and mentoring having to be like, you learn a little bit from the person you're mentoring, I'm learning a little bit from the people that I'm essentially mentoring.
And you have to be open to that.
You have to be open to that. It's part of how that community grows. And if you're not open to that, then you're not listening to the people who are coming. You're not listening to your audience. And if you're not listening to your audience, you're never going to be able to give them what they want.
Right.
And I'm not saying you need to change your music style or anything like that. There's an audience for what you're doing. But it really, people care less, believe it or not, about the genre of music that you're doing. They care more about how it speaks to them on a spiritual level, on a really just guttural level. Cerebral even. That's what's really going to get them. And my music is all over the map in terms of genres. I'm very eclectic sort of styles. But I will tell you right now, for the most part, they all talk about a lot of the same things. And people are starting to get a little bit of that from it. So
yeah. And I think it comes back to, there always has to be that personal touch. You know, there's always got to be that element of, you know, what connected them to you in the first place. And that's the one thing where, like, this automated society we're living in does worry me, is that we're losing a lot of that, you know, for the sake of convenience. Like, I recently got a suggestion from somebody who I do respect greatly that, oh, well, why don't you just use AI to write your music reviews on UMC? And I'm like, the hair on my neck stood up. I'm like, absolutely effing not. Like, because that's supposed to come from a human being who actually listened to your music. I
thought about doing that with my blogs very briefly. Because I'm like, well, gosh, then I could get a whole bunch of blogs done and get them out there. But I'm like, what makes my brand special, what makes Godjot special is is that it's not really about facts and figures and things like that. It's about how it makes me feel. Any particular topic makes me feel, and how I pull from that to explain things on a much more an easier to digest level. And AI can't do that the way I do that. I'm not saying I do it well, by the way. But it is my voice.
Right.
And while AI could probably give you the facts and figures, it's not going to be, me. It's not going to be my voice. Yeah, my stupid humor.
Yeah. And like I get where that suggestion was coming from, the one I received, because it's like, well, I'm really crunched for time right now. There's a lot going on.
Yeah, it's completely understandable.
It's going to be a big summer, right? But that's the one part of the platform that like is the soul of the platform. It's like it's a human listening to your stuff. Like that's always the thing that I've heard is like, the thoughtfulness that goes into every single piece that we put out. There's no thoughtfulness in having AI do it for me, and I'm just going to have to keep doing it until I find reliable help, which has been its own challenge. That's a story for a different day. But like you can't compromise certain things that, need to come from that personal place.
You can't compromise the things that make your brand what your brand is. Because if you do that, then your brand isn't your brand anymore.
It rips the soul out.
It rips the soul out, and now you're back to so and so playing such and such or so and so writing about such and such in the same way everybody else is doing it, because they're all using AI too. And it's one thing to use AI to get some information that you might need to cut down having to do the research. I do that.
Processes
or automate some processes, but at the end of the day, what you're doing and saying and writing has to come from your own, kind of like, when you were doing research back in the day for a thesis, you could get quotes from something, or you could get the basic information from something, but you still had to put it in your own words. If you're using AI to get that information, that's cool. But you still need to put it in your own words. You still need to make it your own. And I will tell you, I've used AI to do some of that, like to help me get some of that information. But I put it in my own words. And the things I learned from it too, I find ways to put in my own words. It's actually, I was telling my wife about it a couple nights ago, kind of trying out one of these things. I wanted to answer one of the things that people ask on Google, the search stuff I was talking about before. And so I asked I asked ChatGPT that same question, and it gave it to me. And I said, then what I'm going to do is I'm going to reword this. And then I'm also going to put something like conclusions in my own words from it, like the same way that I take simple processes in my regular blogs and do it. And it was teaching me a lot about, or I guess maybe in a way I was teaching myself a lot about what I think this means to me. So even then, I was taking the information that ChatGPT was giving me, and I was feeling it, right? And expressing how I feel that, the same as I do with all of my other articles.
Yeah.
And that's how I keep things being on brand. And yeah, it's okay to use AI to help you with some things.
Give you the prompt and
maybe get you to think about things that you wouldn't have thought of before. But you've still got to make that your own. And it's the same with music. I know people are using AI now to play this bass part for me, and it's like, no. Like maybe to give you some ideas. Like as an example, I will sometimes, when I'm assembling my initial songs, I will sometimes use Apple Loops just to give me some cues on what I can do for a style, or what I can do for a change or a chord progression. But at the end of the day, I then go and make it my own. I do it myself, not the same. I don't play it the same way. In fact, Weight of the World. Weight of the World was, I had put in some Apple Loops on some lead guitars.
Yeah.
And I went back and invented, I just knew I need a part that does this, I need a part that does that and fills in this gap. But then I went back and I created my own parts, completely different from those. Didn't even sound the same, not the same licks. They just helped me with cues, so I could get a sense of my arrangement and what I wanted to do, and the color and the tone and the shape.
Yeah.
Do that. That's totally cool. But don't let AI run your system for you, or you're going to lose the humanity in what you're doing. People don't connect to anything but humanity at the end of the day.
Things that require human touch should not lose that human touch.
Yep.
And that's kind of where I'm at a sticking point.
And in fact, I would argue humans need to touch more than what human touches are more than are required in terms of human touches.
Right.
I'm not wording that right, but I think you know what I'm trying to say.
I think so. So
things that need a human touch need a human touch. So do other things.
Yeah. Right.
that currently don't have them.
Right. Yeah.
I guess that's what I'm trying to say.
We just need more humanity, and certainly in our art, like, yes, we have these tools at our disposal, and they're innovative and they're wonderful and they're all these things. However, if you're relying on them to do all of the work for you, then you're not going to know how to do that work on your own, number one. Number two, like, people are going to see through that. Like, I can see through when somebody sends me a ChatGPT generated email, you know, like, hey, I love your platform. It's like, have you even researched it? Or did you just see via Google search that we exist? Go to ChatGPT and be like, write a pitch email to Underground Music Collective. I can see right through it, y'all. I want to know that you engage. I want to know that you will actually invest the time and the thought into engaging, you know, so we can build a collaborative partnership. You know, you will, if I'm reviewing your music, I want to know that you're going to share that review. Yeah. I think that's a fair exchange. If I'm taking the time, I want you to take the time. I think that's just valuing your own time at this point. You know, I've had to learn that lesson the hard way, you know, and stop people pleasing and stop doing so many favors just to do favors, right?
It's got you, because you end up, that goes the other direction. You end up getting yourself in a position where you stop being you because you're diluting who you are. And you have to, I think, by us discussing our mission, values, and vision, it really helped me to go, this is who I am. And if there's something that's going to take me in a different direction because it looks pretty or it looks good or it might help me in some way get forward, I really need to think about whether or not that's a good idea.
Right.
Because if it dilutes my brand, if it takes me off brand, it's not going to work. We talked about that when we were talking about doing that other podcast that we were going to do about the drinking alcohol.
Right.
And talking about passion and drinking alcohol, drinking, sampling some beers, but also talking about the passion and the purpose behind those beers. We wanted to make it something different. It would have to be guests that fit within the mission, vision, and values of what Ender Bowen is about in order to be on there in the first place. Right. And you know, if you just get some random person who doesn't fit within that, then your audience isn't going to be interested. Right. Because they're not something that they're going to latch on to. I mean, you think about like when Oprah was doing her book clubs or some of the guests that she would have on, they fit within her sphere of what her audience was. You got to think about your audience and give them what they're looking for. And I'm telling you, if you figure out what that is and then can balance that against what your brand is, you're gonna do gangbusters. Yeah. And I think that's really important. I mean, it's been something really important for me to learn in the course of the almost 11 years I've been doing this show is like the best conversations are the people who actually, you know, want to bring something of themselves to the platform. Like every time you're on, I know it's going to be a banger like this, you know? Like a banger. Like another recent guest, Alice Vibe, like literally approached me and was like, hey, I love what your show's about. Like, I want to come on. This is a place for me. I feel like this is really a good place for me. And it was that recent episode. Go check it out. Incredible conversation. Every time I have Foundation Mecca on, I know we're going to get deep. Like, and that's the thing is like, I've, you know, counter to that, I've also had guests who just treated it as an interview and they just answered the questions and didn't really engage in conversation much. And I hate those episodes. Like, I'll just say it right now. Like, give me something to talk to you about. Yeah. Don't just be like, oh, well, I'm a singer-songwriter and I'm playing at this place and oh, it's going to be amazing. No, I want to know who you are because your audience wants to know who you are. Because our audience wants to know. Oh, yeah, because your audience wants to know who you are. You know, like if we're just sitting here just doing the Good Morning America interview, which there we go. I blew my chance at ever getting on Good Morning America now. Question, answer, question, answer, question, answer. Okay, bye. We're wasting everyone's time because there's nothing there. I think you and I would probably make Good Morning America maybe a little more interesting. Make Good Morning America great again. Oh, just got canceled again twice in 30 seconds. Woo! I'm on fire right now. Yeah, that's great. I love it. I'm in rare form. I'm just saying whatever's coming to my brain. I bring that out of you, maybe. I don't know. Yeah. Maybe we should take this on tour. Quinn and Ender get canceled tour. Yeah. Yeah, Quinder Bowen.
That's got some potential.
Yeah, maybe.
We'll talk about that offline. But
yeah,
I loved the moment that you had a little bit ago here too, where you're like, maybe I am a coach and a mentor in a sense.
Yeah,
because you are, and you have it in you.
Well, I think every artist is. Yeah. And now that I said that, I hadn't really thought about that until I said it. But I think, in a sense, if what you're doing is serving your community, if that's what you have to do in order to get in front of them and give people what they're looking for, then yes, I think by its very own nature, you then become somewhat of at least a mentor within that community. I mean, think about. I know I'm bringing up U2, but they're, obviously my favorite band. Think about bands like U2. Like, how are they not some sort of a coach or mentor within the community of their audience, right? That, especially when you talk about their activism and everything else. Or Taylor Swift, the example that she sets as a human being in what she does behind the scenes and what she does for women in the industry too. We talk about her a lot.
Look at the run John Bon Jovi's on right now.
Yeah.
He's talking about the 40 years of history that the band has, but it's not like, it's not just all go check out our album.
No.
He had a really good interview with Lewis Howes on the School of Greatness a few weeks ago, where it's like talking about the story and the lessons he's learned and like who he had to be in order to push this band to the heights that it got to.
Right.
Because if you don't know, in the early 90s, he fired his manager, fired the whole team, and is like, okay, I'm the quarterback now, because he noticed his guys were burning out. They were on the verge of breakup. And he's like, okay, we're going to get this right. We're going to do this our way. And their way is clearly working, you know? And now it's just a matter of, okay, are they going to be able to go out and tour? What's the story with his voice? But what the run he's on right now, as far as telling that story and spreading that message of we just worked. We just kept working. We just kept finding the next thing to work on, and we didn't stop. And we managed our relationships with each other. In the late 80s, early 90s, he got them all into group therapy together. Yep. In the late 80s, early 90s, a rock band going to group therapy.
A hair band at that at the time when you think about
dudes, forget about it. He got them to do it.
How is that not, in a sense, mentorship to his audience? Describing these experiences to his audience. And maybe that's not intentional that he's trying to get people to do that, to think like that. I think maybe at least in what you're talking about right now, I think there is some intention in that, getting that message out to his audience. And that is, in a sense, mentorship. So, you really need to think about that as an artist, and really maybe just kind of anytime you're trying to build a brand. Maybe it's not just, being creative and being a musician or being a writer or whatever it is. If you're entrepreneurial and starting a business, there is mentorship there. And gosh, now that I say gorsh. Now that I say that, God, that really changes a lot of how I'm looking at this. See, we're doing it right now. We're doing the whole thing that we usually do, and just doing the podcast. That's God. Yeah, we should take this on the road.
We should take this on the road. Let's go on tour. Does anybody care out there? Let us know in the comments.
Let us know in the comments. Send us some emails. Keep it pithy.
Let us know your city and where we should come to.
Yeah. Get on. What was that? Not Eventful. Was it Eventful?
Eventbrite.
No, Eventbrite was the ticketing thing. I think Eventful was a thing where you could people would have widgets on their website and you could type in where you're from and it would send them a message that says so and so wants to see you in Michigan.
Oh, I never used that.
Years ago, back when we were doing a sketch comp. I don't know. I haven't touched it in years. Maybe it is.
Maybe it is. Maybe they want to sponsor the show. Maybe they want to sponsor this tour that apparently we're on.
Hey.
Let us know. Let us know.
Give us a call.
Our people will call your people.
We are our people.
Oh yeah, that's right. Yeah, that's actually my biggest complaint right now is that I'm it.
We are our own people.
Yeah, that's my biggest problem.
You've arrived when you have people that will be the ones that people call for you.
Yeah. Which person do I need to be today is really the question. Because I'm all of them.
Am I my manager today or am I my PA? Am I getting my coffee today?
The answer is all of them all the time. And that's the problem. So our next episode, we'll talk about the teams we've built because we clearly need to do that. Both of us. Yeah.
Yes.
But in the meantime,
is that our next milestone goal?
Yeah.
Okay. All right.
We're holding ourselves accountable right now.
Okay. Back to the accountability thing. There we go.
You all heard and saw it out there in podcast land. So between now and then, what's next? Now that you've graduated from the academy and you have all these lessons and, you know, you're continuing to climb and continuing to work.
Doing the focus on the mentorship and coaching. You and I talked about the ecosphere around UMC and the UMC, you know, coaching. And I really feel is that I can provide something for that I like the idea of there being different aspects to it, maybe different coaches and mentors for different focuses.
Mm-hmm.
And I think I've got a niche that I could help with, a niche I can scratch.
Hey now! That took me a second. Once I got it, I got it.
It's stupid dad jokes, you know,
Mm-hmm.
once you get there. I really want to focus on helping with that. I think that can help build community. We talked about me doing speaking engagements sometime. The focus was mainly going to be about what I'm doing, but I would love to do some speaking things on behalf of UMC.
Mm-hmm.
And of course, building my brand in a way that's focusing on what I just talked about by creating things that are intentional and that help people get to what they're looking for and providing that for people. And that's my next step, is getting those going, getting those books out, and let's see where those go. And hopefully a year from now or whatever, the next time we talk, I can actually provide some data behind that and see how that's gone. That's provided time, works, and everything else. Because as you said, you know, we're each doing this on our own, and especially when you're a dad, there's good Lord, it's hard to get that time in. A lot of late nights and a lot of very, very difficult mornings.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Next time we talk, you mean when we go on tour?
Yes.
It starts next week.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
We're going to hit the road. Eventful is going to sponsor us.
Eventful. Yeah.
If they don't exist, they will exist.
We'll just reinvent them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Reinvent Eventful.
Yes. Inventful.
Hey now. So where can they learn more about you online and continue to follow the journey?
Enderbowen.com is my main website. You can find everything from there. But if you want to jump into GodJots, that's godjots.com. And if you want to jump into Joy Commission, we're in the process of the rebrand right now. I would recommend just go to enderbowen.com, sign up there. You'll be clued into everything that's going on shortly. And enderbowen.com/Discord is where you can get involved with my Little Lights community. And I'm still trying to grow that. I'm actually looking for some early testers to try and get that moving forward. There's not a lot of people there right now, but if you're interested and open to this idea of compassion and discussing compassion and growth and how you can serve your community and help people with their struggles, including your own, that's what I really want to do with that. And please don't be afraid to contact me or go there, and we'll figure that out. Facebook, Ender Bowen; Twitter, Ender Bowen; Instagram, Ender.Bowen; and the EnderBowenStore.com is where you can find shirts like these. Mm-hmm. So yeah, that's where all my places are, and I'm sure there'll be a lot more coming from there.
Mm-hmm. And you can find shirts like these at umcnashville.com/shop. Where you'll also find the Quinn Spinn, 2 N's in Quinn, 2 N's in Spin. Find us on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube, and more. Also on the socials, Instagram and Threads at Quinn Spinn Official. Again, 2 N's in Quinn, 2 N's in Spin. Facebook and the TikToks, the Quinn Spinn. Also, umcnashville.com, our central hub, as I may have mentioned, for all things independent creativity, community, sweet merch, and more. UMC Nashville will bring you to most of our socials except Facebook. It's UMC Worldwide. Awkward rebrand last fall. Never happened again. I'm sorry to scare you all last fall with whatever I was thinking. At Nash Live shows, we're planning our next one. Stay tuned for information. Can't reveal any quite yet, but we're getting there. So make sure you follow the journey of the Nash Live experience. And at Gerard Longo 12, that's me. That's my real name, and you'll find info on all these things in the occasional fitness thirst trap, because it is thirst trap season, and also some Northside Sheriff updates because Music Fest is coming up soon. Ooh. And I'm gonna go do that. Also, speaking of Music Fest, wow, this ending tag keeps getting longer and longer and longer.
Yeah, I'm trying to.
Yeah, furiously keep up. Music Fest Industry and Education Conference, August 1st and 2nd, Bethlehem, Pennsylvania. I'll be there both days. I'll be presenting the second day, Perfect Your Pitch. Of course, it's about building authentic connections as an independent artist. 1:30 p.m. in the Red Cinema. Tickets available now, musicfest.org.
And I will vouch for you want to check this out.
Yes, you do.
You
yes,
100% want to check this out. This is it's going to be big. It's going to do a lot.
And I might be teasing it out with a little webinar between now and then. We'll see.
Nice.
We'll see.
You want to check that out too.
Mm-hmm. But now that I've teased you, Revel 9's All I Become is going to take us out like it brought us in. Grab some muffins on your way out.